Now it's time for the Anchormen podcast with Matt Gates and Pearson Sharp.
Welcome back to another episode of Anchormen. I am joined, as always, by my outstanding co-host, Pearson Sharp, and we've got a great discussion planned for everybody. We are going to have a key voice that is listened to a lot in Iran, an Iranian political analyst here to break down what we've seen in these recent protests, what's to come for the big Persian Empire, and whether or not there is a possibility for friendship or some sort of accord with the United States, or are we destined for this conflict and battle and indeed more bloodshed like we've seen in Iran. But first, Pearson, you know, what I really looked forward to when we did this little project together is that all of the rage baiting that I do of you normally kicking around at the One American News studio, I can now do for the world. And I saw this poll from the Wall Street Journal, and I just thought, Pearson's going to go nuts, because even though you text me about 4 times a week that Republicans in Congress are useless, that no one there fights,
they don't,
that there's never consequences when they trap President Trump in the back, they are crushing it in this poll. Take a look. Democrats only prevailing on healthcare as a major component of the issue matrix. Border security, Republicans up 28. Immigration, economy, inflation, foreign policy, Russia-Ukraine war, tariffs. We're winning on tariffs. Have the right priorities. These are the things that win elections, Pearson. Why are you so down all the time?
I mean, I don't think the voters in every sense are always the best place to judge how shrewd the perception is in America. I mean,
Pearson Sharp, don't trust the voters.
Well, let's revisit that this November when we lose the House and see what we think of the voters after that.
You are a doomer. You are the doomer that Dan Bongino has been warning me about.
Okay,
I will not allow it.
I am so glad you brought that up. So, our inestimable Congress has passed fewer than 40 bills into law this term, which is the lowest output in modern history for a first session of a presidency. The fewest House votes in 2 years in Congress this century, only 362 on record. The legislative calendar crowded with confirmations, not lawmaking. Senate devoted lots of time to judges and executive nominees.
Good.
Internal
GOP.
GOP.
Know what my answer is good. I am so glad that Congress is passing fewer laws. Like, so what congressman has been like, elect me so I can make more laws?
No, I would agree with that. But after the last 4 years, we've got a lot of things to put into place to get rid of what happened before and to protect us. He did it in the One Big Beautiful Bill. These guys are going to rise or fall with the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It's going to make people feel better about the economy or not. It's going to fund the deportations or not. And the Wall Street Journal says they need to be made into law. They need to be made into law. All these things that Trump has done.
Yeah, but here's the argument that
they're just going to get wiped out.
There's this big. There's a lot of reporting right now from Politico and Axios on this point. Republicans in swing districts are saying we don't want to take votes on those executive orders. We might alienate some people or make.
Well, that's retarded. We absolutely have to. But let me get back to this wonderful poll of yours. We had a record 43 government shutdown. The House split.
It was longer.
Yeah, well, generally I would agree. Generally, the less government, the better. House GOP split on NED funding. 81 Republicans joined the Democrats.
That's pathetic.
To defeat a GOP amendment to strip $315 million from the National Endowment for Democracy, which hates Republicans, hates conservatives, hates the American people, and 81 Republicans joined Democrats for that. Congress and Republicans funded the ATF at Biden era levels, $1.6 billion instead of the deep cuts that Trump and Pro-2A groups wanted. Gun Owners of America, so the GOP backed down and bent over and surrendered by rejecting Trump's bigger cuts. Healthcare affordability.
Here's what I would say, because we only got a minute on this. You know what? That's progress. Because when I was there, you only would have had 81 Republicans taking the conservative position. So the fact that 81 took the liberal position,
backstabbed us and betrayed us, is progress.
It means that we at least have the majority of the majority. And it probably takes a lot more than that to win the country, and those 81 should be ashamed.
Well, and the 17 Republicans who supported Obamacare, we can't even get rid of that.
Yeah, and by the way, those are the ones that call themselves the majority makers.
Yeah. So this is what I say to your poll. Congress is useless. If pro is the opposite of con, then Congress is the opposite of progress.
And we will be right back with our discussion about Iran in moments. You've heard me talk about All Family Pharmacy before, and I'm going to keep talking about them because they're doing things right. fast, reliable, and actually caring for the people who need medications without the usual runaround. So don't wait in line. Get your meds delivered right to your door. All you need is allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt. You're going to be prepared. They have doctors on standby, ready to work with you to get you the prescriptions you need, and they've even got overnight shipping available. So make sure you go to allfamilypharmacy.com. You're going to see ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, all kind of things that Big Pharma doesn't want you to get your hands on, in addition to the stuff you need like antibiotics and daily maintenance medications. They even have blood pressure medication, which I might need occasionally. allfamilypharmacy.com/Matt. You get 10% off with code MATT10. Welcome back. We'll be discussing the ongoing conflict in Iran for the remainder of our program. My co-host Pearson Sharp and I are joined by Ali Alizadeh, an Iranian political analyst and the editorial chief for Jadal TV. Ali, thank you so much for being with us here on the program. What are your observations about what's going on in Iran right now?
Thank you very much for inviting me and giving me this opportunity. I just managed to talk to people in Iran yesterday and today after a long break because the internet blackout is quite severe. And what I heard is on 8th and 9th of January, we've had unprecedented demonstrations, protests, and unprecedented level of violence that from a essence and quality that we have never seen before in Iran, which I will go and explain to it later if there's time. But since Saturday morning, 10th of January, hasn't been a single protest, even though when you look at Western coverage, it looked like the protests were ongoing. And one of the reasons for that was because they were hoping to push people to come out further and further. But the crackdown has managed to finish all protests. So the question is the question of the number of casualties and the number of dead people is being debated and has oscillated from like a few thousand to 16,000, 12,000. This, about a couple of hours ago, Iran's Council of Defense officially announced 3,114 dead, from which they said 2,400 of them were normal citizens and officers and forces of security, and they didn't clarify the nature of the other 670 people, which tells you possibly they're going to call them the terrorists. And so at least 3,100 people have got killed, which is a astonishing number with Iranian standards.
Yeah.
And so at this stage, people are like, I don't know,
tell me this. How does that much death impact a country of 90 million people?
The thing is, let me just give you some perspective. In 2009, election dispute, which led to Green Movement, I think 56 people died in 2009, and then in January 2010, which was the next one, about 35. Overall, I think less than 150 people. In the protests of January 2018, I think 27 people died. And in November 2019, which was part of and the result of Trump's maximum pressure campaign, and it was quite heavy in very deprived part of big cities made of urban poor, about 217 people died. And in Women Life Freedom, about 400 people all around the country, including guerrilla movement in Kurdistan and Balochistan. So this number is a new standard. We haven't had this before. Also, the kind of violence used in these 2 days is something we haven't seen before. I know a big part of it, the main responsibility, of course, stays with the state, but the so-called protesters as well performed things that we haven't seen before: burning police officers alive, banging the head of kind of the militia close to the state with bricks, with knife, and is a kind of violence which we had seen only before in Syria and Iraq when ISIS appeared in 2013 and 14, and we hadn't seen here before. And also a big part of, not big part, but a considerable part of the protesters were armed. And now there's a question and debate how they were armed, where they found the weapons and ammunition, because in Iran, keeping weapons is absolutely illegal and can lead to death sentence. So
it sounds
many of them.
Sorry, it sounds like you're blaming the protesters for this, and you think that maybe they're in the wrong in this situation.
No, I'm not blaming them. It's a complicated thing, and I think we need to become familiar with this complicated phenomenon. I've been arguing myself with the level of economic hardship in Iran. We expected this to happen. I said back in September that it's not time for economic surgery and shock doctrine as Iranian president was going to do. And I said, if you do it, we're going to have about 2,500 deaths. I predicted that back in September. But two things I hadn't seen. I hadn't seen this level of angry mob in Iran, which kind of, we can say, they are showing signs of fascistic behavior, which is organic, and that's very dangerous and scary. ISIS.
Whoa, hold on. Lay out for me what you believe is the organic fascism in the uprisings that you've observed in Iran.
One, the level of physical violence. So
yeah, but they've been repressed. I mean, the argument is these are repressed people. These are people
fighting back.
Yeah, who by virtue of some people will blame the sanctions. Some people will say they were riled up by foreign intel. But regardless of any of that,
they have a lot of reason to be upset.
Yeah, they've clearly been repressed by the Iranian regime,
brutalized.
Do you not concede that?
No, of course, you are brutalized, but you need to direct your anger towards someone who's done it. Directing your anger against a 19 years old, what they call Basij, which is like militia or plainclothes person who's coming from the same poor background, and he's not even armed. The state has sent them to the street on 125cc motorcycles, and getting them and inserting objects to their orifice. That's something we haven't seen before.
You're gonna respond brutally to who was brutalizing you, whoever that is. It's a plainclothes cop who's 19 years old, or it's a well-armed, soldier. Whoever's coming at you, you're gonna respond to them.
So, but again, like burning mullahs, because in a sense, if you're angry in America, if you go back to like Black Lives Matter or the riots I witnessed in London in 2011, you're angry, but you wouldn't go around like, white priests and to burn them alive. So these protests, these protesters, this layer of protesters I'm talking about, because there are so many layers. There are normal, ordinary, angry people. There are more radical elements, and there are another elements that the state is talking about them, and they seem to have been very well organized. They had coordination with each other, and they were trained. And
I want to get into that. I want to get into that in a moment. But first, we certainly don't concede that the fact that someone is using violence to fight back against a violent regime is evidence of fascism. You would need stronger evidence, I think, to make that claim. But let me throw out an argument.
Let me just add this one.
Okay, sure, please.
Add this one because one thing is Iran is still a Muslim country. I mean, that's a religion. The same way that America is a Christian country. It doesn't mean that you practice it or not, but that's like the framework of the culture. Burning mosques, burning the holy places, burning the shrines and things. It comes from a new hatred. And that hatred, which somehow is articulated in the hatred of Islam, trying to go to pre-Islamic ideology. This never existed before. I mean, if you're trying to go to pagan ideology and burn down all churches in America, that's like that.
Alexander the Great might have an argument to make, but the argument I want to make for you to agree with or disagree with, I'm fascinated in your perspective, is that let's take all of the inputs you've just said about the unprecedented nature of the riots, the seemingly torturous nature of some of those interactions. But here we are today, and there are no protests anymore. And so is it fair to say the Iranian regime is stronger today than ever before. Because every time you survive one of these things, you get stronger because you further demoralize those who would participate in a future
and you've eliminated
uprising.
The competition.
Yeah, you've eliminated the command and control. You talked about the 3,000 plus deaths that they administered onto the civilian population. Should America right now think about the Iranian regime as in full control of the country at a zenith of that power?
I mean, I would call it Iranian state, whether you like it or not. That's a state which has come out of revolution and has only like 400,000 military personnel who believe in its ideology. So I don't think this is a regime. It's not Assad regime. It's a state, and it's a dysfunctional state. It's a state with lots of corruption. It's a state with a lot of kind of unfreedoms. But it's a state because it is it's comprised of at least still 10 million heartfelt kind of supporters. So, but whether Iran is stronger today or not, yes, it definitely feels like they overcome a crisis, but I don't think they have overcome the underlying condition for this crisis to happen. They haven't overcome the economic hardship of this crisis. However, I think there's a pattern of behavior in Islamic Republic. Whenever a crisis happens, they brutally or unbrutally, whatever you want to call it, they repress it, and then they come and say that they repeat the same things, that it was done by the foreign agents and we will not move an inch. But behind the scene, they change the policy. They change the policy and they make compromises. So in 2022, Women Life Freedom, they kind of, after they repressed the movement and the demonstrations, what happened? Obligatory hijab was gone for good. Yeah. So I think this can be Iran's Tiananmen Square in Chinese language. This can be a moment that the state may decide to overcome its hesitations. What are Iranian state's hesitations? Two. One, big part of Iranian state are pro-America. Javad Zarif, Hassan Rouhani, and a big part of Iranian oligarchy studied in Britain, in America, and they love to be part of kind of Western world system.
Well, I know they'd love to be part of Western markets. The people you just mentioned are, I think, currently sanctioned.
I know about the sanction, but the children study there. The children have American passports. Zarif's children have American passport. They were born in America. Rouhani studied in Britain. His niece lives there.
Sure, the elites have all those privileges. What about the rest of the population?
No, I'm not defending that. I'm saying that they want to be pro-West. But there's another faction who thinks we are not getting anywhere. We need to go really kind of fast towards BRICS, Shanghai. We have to have a very acute turn to the east. But they haven't managed to do it properly because these two sides are like pulling from both ways. And I think this can be a moment that the state overcomes hesitation. The state say goodbye to America, say goodbye to waiting for making detente with America. And also the second hesitation is making the bomb, because Iran has, Ayatollah Khamenei has decided to take a third way to be a threshold state. They thought it's less pricey to be threshold state, but it seems that it's not working. As long as Iran is a threshold state, Israel is like, will have the appetite to come and destroy it. 12 days war. Assassinating all the commanders. Now the dream to assassinate Khamenei. But if Iran becomes nuclear, so this crisis may trigger more hardline elements to get more power and the state to overcome its hesitations.
Is that what? Hold on. Is that what you saw happen after these other uprisings? Is that the hardliners used the putting down of the uprisings and the potential Western? Well, not even the potential. At this point, the acknowledged Western support for those uprisings as a basis to drive out what would be the more moderate voices, and I couch that term very substantially when speaking about the leadership of Iran.
In 2019, that happened. In 2019, when Hassan Rouhani's supposedly liberal pro-Western government kind of caused the uprising by sharply increasing the price of petrol, many people wanted to impeach him. Khamenei didn't allow them to do that, but then he slowly moved, become appointed Raisi as a hardliner, as the next president, and so shifted the country towards that direction. That's when finally Iran joined BRICS, got much closer to Russia, and also started like working closely with China. And I think this time this is going to happen as well. And I think this is like in line with the logic of a state, because America and Israel are leaving no other option for a state than jumping to the bosom of Russia and China.
I want to get to the United States and Israel and some beliefs as to what role they may have had in what we've just observed in Iran. Before that, did you have any other questions on this?
Yeah, I did. The U.S. has intervened in Iran famously, infamously, in the past several times. And there's talk about the U.S. intervening again, on the behalf of the downtrodden and oppressed people of Iran, which, in this case, I think would probably be a good idea. But from your perspective, considering the U.S.'s history in Iran, do you think the people of Iran want the U.S. to get involved this time? Do they have an appetite for American intervention in this case?
Can we talk about people of America? We cannot, because there are so many different layers in American society, a society of 330, 40 million people. And
no, wait, hold on. He's asking a more precise question. He's asking a more precise question, which is, if America intervenes militarily, how do you perceive the populace in Iran reacting to that?
Right, correct.
That's what I'm saying. The polls are, you have to look at polls on different parts of the population. Definitely, there is a hardened, more radicalized section of Iranian society which will cheer for Trump, especially now, because Iran is experiencing a mass hysteria. More from, though I have to say, more among Iranians abroad and diaspora. You should not confuse the mood of diaspora of a society with mood of people inside. And diaspora is big. About 6-7 million Iranians who have been pushed out of the country, lots of hatred, like Venezuelan diaspora, Cuban diaspora. Measuring Iranian 85, 90 million Iranians' mood with the diaspora is a big mistake. But some people may cheer out of the anger, especially what's happening now, the regime, the state has killed many people. But you have to remember, I think Iran is the oldest country in the region. If you go back to Iran was born, the modern Iran, 1501. So it's the oldest country, and there's a deep-rooted nationalist DNA there. And foreign intervention is not going to look good. And I don't think Trump will find enough support inside the country. Second,
you're saying Iranians don't want America to get involved at this point?
Iranians inside Iran, they understand the meaning of war, because in the 12 days war, they experienced that Israel didn't only kill IRGC commanders. Israel killed, among the 1,100 people who got killed, many of them were normal Iranian citizens, children, people who had nothing to do with the commanders. One of them was a neighbor. One of them was like someone who was just passing by. So the Iranians have fought 8 years war with crazy Saddam, and they had seen this 12 days war. They understand what war is, and they understand any war will have a lot of collateral damage, and the nation will be the collateral damage. They don't want it. Second thing is, Iran has been extremely restrained in the last 6 years, since 3rd of January 2000, when Trump assassinated General Qasem Soleimani. After that, Iran went to a very restrained defensive mode that Khamenei called it strategic patience. Trump killed Iran's top general. Iran attacked Ain al-Assad's empty camps. Nothing. Not even like a single American soldier got killed. Yeah? And then again, Trump bombed all Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran did some firework around Al-Udaid. Nothing. Yeah? But I think if this attack is going to be serious by Trump, especially if he attacks Ayatollah Khamenei himself or anything like that, the state has to, out of its logic of survival, has to take the risk this time and attack American personnel, American servicemen, American army properly, unlike last times. Because this time the pressure from inside, and if Trump joins from outside, they cannot just take that restraint action.
Well, I think
again.
that would.
So I think
if Trump gets involved now, it would be a war at that point. But you're saying that
But to what end? Like regime change?
Well, that would be, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Another Middle East regime change
Exactly.
war.
No.
Sweet.
No.
Right.
It
But-
had been a couple decades since we started one
right,
of those.
but it seems like it's a little different in this situation. But
Why?
But hang on. So you're saying, though, that even considering all the thousands of Iranians who were just killed by the government, that the people of Iran still don't want America to come in and help them?
With 90, you said yourself, 90 million population, yeah? A couple of thousand. First of all, one important thing is from this 3,000, the state says the number of like officers, policemen, Basijis killed is unbelievable. I mean, if anything, it shows how unprepared the state was for this round of attacks.
It's a very interesting corollary too. You draw to like the BLM riots that those folks lost a lot of sympathy they might have otherwise had when they started killing police officers, shooting at people who were involved in a public safety regime that weren't like, Donald Trump incarnate policing your local neighborhood.
How many police were killed in BLM?
Gosh, it was a handful.
It was a handful.
Yeah, it was I think less than a dozen, but there were those instances in Texas.
Too many.
Yeah. I do want to get to an analysis that we had recently on my program, The Matt Gaetz Show, and get your reaction to it. This is former CIA analyst Larry Johnson explaining what he believed happened during these protests in Iran. Take a listen.
This was a long-planned op. It was launched on December 28th. CIA, Mossad, and most likely MI6 were involved. The first step was to crash the currency, create an economic crisis that's real. The plan both to ramp up these protests, use outside influences that were already supplied with Starlink terminals, with firearms, ammunition. They were going to, insert themselves into these protests and then create acts of violence that was going to be supplemented by a massive information operation that was being run out of London, trying to create the impression that it was simply the Iranian government killing all these people, and to kill enough to create a pretext that the United States would justify the attack that was planned for last Tuesday. Problem was, this all failed.
We're rejoined by Ali Alizadeh, the editorial chief for Jadal TV, also an Iranian political analyst. So as you hear former CIA analyst Larry Johnson describe that, is that something you think happened?
I mean, I don't have the certainty of Larry Johnson, and I think none of us knows what has happened so far because it's a bit of darkness in Iran until more documents come out. We have like these videos, we have to like analyze them, etc. So we exactly don't know what has happened. But I know that Iranian authorities and security forces were truly taken by surprise. They didn't expect this level of violence. They didn't expect it to be so coordinated in so many cities at the same time. And so definitely is a possibility of infiltration. However, there's a longer-term infiltration. As I said at the beginning, the fascist movement, I said the elements of fascism, because these like TV channels run from London, one of them possibly funded by Israel, they've been like putting ideas in the minds of kind of people, filling them with anger, teaching them what to do. Sometimes these TVs openly tell you about how to create, how to make like kind of handmade bombs and create violence, etc. But definitely, the second thing that Larry Johnson said and is under investigation at the moment is maybe the beginning of the whole crisis maybe is done in UAE, in Emirates, which is very close to Israel, and that forced Iranians to depreciate kind of the price of the national currency even more. Because as you know, Iran has to bypass sanctions. How do they do that? They have people called trustees. These people are based in Dubai. The money comes there. They go through so many different like bank accounts, and they try to like lose the path, and then the money goes to another channel. That's
but wait, so you're saying that whether this was inspired by the UAE or the CIA or fascist propaganda from London, that this was an outside operation and that this is not a grassroots legitimate feeling from the people desiring on their own to rise up against the government?
I'm saying that One thing is the beginning of all these things is by sanctions. Iranian government, which I have a lot of criticism for, they have corruptions, they have oligarchies who are kind of deaf to the demands of people. But trust me, they are not more corrupt than Saudis. They are not more corrupt than Jordanians, than Egyptians, than any other government in the region. What has made so much crisis in Iran is sanctions. Without sanctions, things would be like as it is in any other of these West Asian countries. Yeah. So sanctions has brought people to their knees, as Besant said.
More so than the brutal Islamic law.
Much more, which is Islamic laws. I mean, Iranian Islamic laws are like libertarian in comparison with Wahhabi laws in Qatar and Saudi Arabia.
True.
Well, sure, but I mean, you're still beating women for the way they dress and cracking down.
The last time you did was like 2022, and you took one of them, and so you stopped. You realize you basically paid a high price, and you realize that was a stupid form of governance, yeah? And you backed off, yeah? You backed off. And the thing is, you have to remember, I mean, my mom, all my childhood memories is like my mom being arrested by these vans, yeah? And when I was like 18 myself, 20 myself, they put a kind of gun and they like shaved my head. So I have nothing to support this. However, in order to understand the complexity of that hijab rule, you have to think as American about American gun laws. As someone who lives in London, everyone look at the gun laws and they think, crazy American, one more school shooting, why don't they stop it? But the society is half-half. Is not an easy law to change. Yeah? Iranian society was very combined. Half of it wanted some form of enforcement of hijab law. And then that uprising, the state violence changed it. Now the majority of Iranians don't want any form of enforcement. It's not like a state was doing it against 90% will.
Okay, well, for the sake of argument, let me grant the premise that it is the sanctions that have created this sense of economic unrest, which likely was fuel for the uprisings we just observed. The sanctions haven't gone anywhere. They're still in place. So what happens next? Are we just in a period of cascading uprisings, or with 3,000 people?
Is more coming?
Yeah. I'm curious as to your perspective on that. I'm so excited when we get our Merriweather Farms shipments in. You get a beautiful piece of ribeye. Look at that marbling. Now, I take it out of the package, let it get down to room temperature. All I've got on here is a little salt, a little pepper, and then a little avocado oil. And then I've had my pan preheating with a little oil.
Head to merriweatherfarms.com and enter promo code MattG for 15% off your first order.
Yeah, that's why I say it's like Iran's Tiananmen Square. Iran has options. It's 2026. If it was 2019, 2017, China wouldn't dare to work with Iran. But now it's a new China. It's a China which dare to like impose sanctions on America. China has been buying Iran's oil despite all Trump's pressure. And yesterday Iran reached its record high production of oil since 1979 revolution. So Iran is like producing oil, selling oil, and has options. Iran can leave SWIFT and can leave the dollar network and can de-dollarize, can work with China directly through yuan and through kind of barter mechanism, as they are already doing it with Russia. Iran and Russia directly work without going through SWIFT. So the sanctions have their own blowback. And I think America has abused sanctions so much. And Iranians waited and waited and waited and waited for sanctions to be relieved. And they did anything you can imagine. What more can they do? They gave all the kind of nuclear thing. They were willing to give more concession. Arakchi.
Well, I'm with you on the sanctions. Like to me, I don't see where sanctions have really worked in the world. Right? I mean,
anywhere.
You've studied Russia extensively.
Yeah, totally backfired there.
They haven't worked in Cuba. Right. And here they seem to have had kind of the desired effect of sanctions. Like if you were a really pro-sanctions person, you would say, well, like the reason we want to do sanctions is we want to make it so uncomfortable for a country that they will change their behavior.
They have to, right? They have no other option.
This sounds like what we're hearing from Ali is very uncomfortable,
right?
In Iran. If it is in fact the case, Pearson, that foreign intelligence is stirring up these uprisings, Does that even concern you? Are you cool with that? As Joe Q public American taxpayer, do you believe the American tax dollar should be going to foment uprisings in Iran?
I mean, no, I don't think we should be.
You were just pro-intervention like 10
Well,
minutes ago.
it depends on where the focus for the uprising is coming from. If it's artificial, that's one thing. But if it's genuine, and I mean, the regime, and I will push back, and I will say it's a regime, and I want to ask you about that again in a second. They're already at war with the population, and at this point, the U.S. is just deciding whether we should prop it up or step aside. And you have this country that has no freedom of expression, no freedom of internet, no freedom of press, no freedom of conscience, no equality before the law.
Are you talking about Ukraine or
no? Yeah, exactly.
Iran, okay,
no, talking about Iran.
wondering.
No free elections. So I think you have a regime here. I mean, they just killed thousands of their own people. I think you have legitimate causes for the people who live there to be aggrieved at their own government and to want a change. And I don't think sanctions or propaganda videos from London have to be the cause of that.
So this is getting into deeper debate, but look at that.
Well, that's what we're here for.
Election. Okay, so if you have time, so no election. I mean, I look at like American election and thinking, I mean, if your option is only between Trump and Hillary Clinton, come on. I mean, we deserve more. But that's the election.
But at least the
Iran
people
as
pick
well.
those candidates. In Iran, you don't get to pick your candidates. The clerics do.
But people plus media empires, people plus those who can. I mean, you know better than me that how much kind of fundings and kind of the money that you get for kind of for elections has changed American system. Unfortunately, I think American like electoral system was one of the most free, but then the money really changed it. And at least in Britain, you have a cap on how much money you can get for election, and you don't have that
Not
cap
that that's
in America.
helped England at all.
I mean, but still, in comparison with like the unlimited amount of money that you can bring to election, how much money did you spend the last cycle of election in America?
Yeah, presidential campaign costs $1 billion.
Yeah.
A presidential campaign costs $1 billion to run. But I don't know. I disagree with that because after a certain amount of money is spent, there are substantial diminishing returns. Like when I would run for office, I would at times run against people who had $4 million. Maybe I had $1 million. But like after you've spent the first $1 million, like it all kind of starts to look like the wallpaper a bit. But
that's the problem.
Yeah, we've gone a bit down a rabbit hole here.
No, it's not a rabbit hole. Let me explain. Actually, the problem we have now in Iran is more to do with the with the political system in United States, and you guys should change that than the political system in Iran. Iran has a limited system. The candidates go through the Council of Guardian, and they're like handpicked by the state. And there's a reason for that. Because if you have American B-2s over a state, if you have security threat and existential threat all the time, they're not going to open themselves. Which state throughout history has opened up to more libertarian values when they had war and existential threat?
Venezuela?
In America, when you had September 11, you had existential threat. You got rid of freedom of speech, you brought back torture, you brought back waterboarding and everything, which is okay because it's called announcing a state of exception. When a state of exception came, things changed. Iran had a 12 days war. America constantly says we want to do a regime change. We want to decapitate your leader. We want to yes, today Trump said that I will blow up the whole country. Not IRGC, not
Well, I
Mullahs.
mean, the
the whole
Ayatollah did just
country.
threaten Trump's life. So
yeah, but
But
that's
how do you do
deterrent.
that?
Obviously, Trump isn't going to blow up the whole country.
Right.
He's trying to reset deterrence so that there's peace instead of this kind of tit for tat that we see. Is it your expectation that Iran in the coming weeks or months will have as a part of their response a reactivation of some of these proxy forces, or do you think things will stay calm on that front?
So can I just finish on the previous one? I'll come back here. The reason I said the problem is more with the electoral system. The problem is with that $100 million that Miriam Adelson gave to Trump. If it wasn't for that, I think Trump and with the coherency that he's shown in his policies otherwise, he wouldn't get involved with Iran at all.
Oh,
He
no, that's
doesn't have
totally
much
false.
to do with
No.
Really?
Listen. President Trump is himself a billionaire, and he almost views himself as entitled to those political resources. That political donations don't shape how President Trump behaves. And by the way, like, even if they did, it certainly wouldn't impact it in a second term. Like, Trump's not running again. If you think Donald Trump has a problem taking $100 million from someone and looking them in the face and telling them that he's not going to do what they want, then you don't understand the psyche of the man.
What is he risking? Why is he risking his presidential credentials, his winning in Venezuela, all his good photo ops at the moment, with getting very close to a head-to-head war with Iran? Why is he doing that?
Oh, by the way, it's a great question. It's a great question, and I'm glad you've asked it. I think the game you are watching is not the game being played. I believe that Netanyahu wanted to execute the Ayatollah, and I believe that any other person that had run for president in 2024, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, I think
Nikki
any
Haley.
of those people would have let Netanyahu do it. And Trump understood that if you execute the Ayatollah right now, you have a country of 90 million people that goes into abject chaos. You have tens of millions of war refugees that move across the Middle East.
Flood Europe.
You crush capital markets in these emerging places, and Trump is fond of those emerging markets. And so that's why we had to do some babysitting. We had to constantly send our senior government officials over to Israel to keep Netanyahu from going completely insane. And now, Bibi comes to Mar-a-Lago. He begs for Trump to again strike Iran. And I think Trump understood what you just said on this program, that the risk of another U.S. engagement there could create great security problems for U.S. forces in the region, that we don't get a lot of benefit out of that risk. And so I think that Trump is actually a moderating force in this, not someone at all acting at the behest of someone's $100 million donation.
Okay, going back to putting all of this thing together. First of all, you said, what about regime change? What about people protest? And then the fact that I'm attributing it to foreign infiltrators and things. The other way around. Actually, there's a new phenomena here. The phenomena which I really been surprised and been thinking about since 2022. And the phenomena is Iran, with all this organic discontent that the people have, if you give them time and you allow them to develop their kind of movements, for example, Women Life Freedom in 2022 or this time, is slowly and organically, it will be actually shaking the foundation of the state. Yeah, this one, I was talking to people in Iran today and yesterday, and they were saying that if these demonstrations were not met with such massive violence from the so-called protesters on 8th and 9th of January, they were getting bigger and bigger, and many even religious factions, many of the base of the state would have joined them, because the economic hardship is transfactional, is bipartisan. It goes beyond whether you're religious or you're atheist, whether you're pro-state or you're anti-state, whether you are
So you think this would have resolved itself on its own?
No, he's making an argument for incrementalism. You've been making an argument for incrementalism the entire discussion.
Same as 2022, but there's a new phenomena which comes, is so much in rush, is hurried, wants to force everything as if there is no tomorrow. So in Women Life Freedom, after 1 week, I saw in this the media channels, they were asking for armed insurrection. She's like, wow, is Iran made? I mean, this is not like Syria 2014. And I think that's Israeli. So Israelis are in rush. Mossad thinks differently from CIA, from America. And I think that's why I disagree with you, Matt, because in 2022, Biden really took a back seat. He didn't intervene. He didn't use any inflammatory sentence. And everything was done by Netanyahu, who brought Reza Pahlavi, the monarch.
When did Biden check Netanyahu? Netanyahu rolled through Gaza and killed tens of thousands of people, and Biden was backing aid packages at all times. Please tell me when you think Biden restrained Netanyahu.
No, he didn't restrain him, but at least
Trump did.
He didn't add to his
right. So if there's no time Biden ever restrained Netanyahu, he let him mow through Gaza in the most
how would he have stopped him in this
horrendous way
situation?
possible. Yeah, there's no world, I believe. I think if Netanyahu wanted to execute the Ayatollah and Biden was president, Netanyahu would execute the Ayatollah.
Okay, I don't know how much maneuvering space Trump has. From outsider point of view, it looked like he's falling for another kind of trap. He was getting into like another war, kind of a quagmire.
Yeah, by the way, I know that's what it looks like. That's why I'm telling you, I don't think the game that you're watching is the game that's being played. And I think that's why Trump named this thing the 12-day war. Trump names it the 12-day war because he doesn't want it to see day 13. You know,
it's intentionally limited.
Yeah, I want to conclude on this because you've given us a terrific episode.
So if that's let me just go with this one. If that's your understanding, so someone like Scott Ritter's reading today that maybe Trump actually backstabbed Netanyahu by making him lose his momentum. So not having Abraham Lincoln around saying that, oh, wait for it to arrive. So he made actually kind of Netanyahu and all this like force coming to do regime change, decapitation of Khamenei to lose his momentum. So he wasn't on board from beginning. So he was just pretending. Is it something that you are implying?
On board with what? On board with the execution of the
regime
Ayatollah?
Change.
Yeah,
that's right. With the decapitation of Khamenei.
I think that what you're seeing play out in Venezuela is probably what President Trump would prefer in Iran, which is that the Ayatollah is not a shot caller anymore, is not a trusted, is not the person leading the country. But like, we're not going to do in Iran what we did in Iraq, where we showed up and said, anybody who was ever a Ba'athist, anybody who was ever in Saddam's government, you're all going to be tried as war criminals and banished to the deserts. I think that what you see in Venezuela is a model for personnel change,
leaving something functional in place.
that doesn't embrace the challenges of the full-scale regime change. Pearson, you had a final point?
Yeah, I wanted to know, what do you think at this point is the best possible outcome for Iran? Where do you see it going from here optimally? And do you think that the U.S. and Iran could be allies at any point? And what would that involve?
Some people say, I think, I mean, Iran needs to clean up, have a kind of clean up a house, clean up its corruption, clean up, kind of restrain its oligarchy and thing. And I think you need to clean up your house. Your political house is so much ruled by Israel. That's not how to rule a country. You are an empire. You used to be an empire. You're a superpower. Why do you allow Netanyahu to dictate to 330 million Americans what they think? Iran really, I mean, I'm telling that from inside Iran, the state, majority of this state, they really wanted to be integrated with American system. They don't like Russia. They didn't like Russia. They don't like China because they don't speak the language. They don't like the culture. They love the United States. I'm not talking about the people. I'm talking about the mullahs. And you made them suffer. They made the Iran deal. Trump came out of it. Yeah? Why? Because at the time, I think he got $450 billion from Ben Salman, and he helped Ben Salman doing his maximum pressure. But I think Ben Salman was more clever. He learned his lesson after Aramco was bombed in September 2019, and he backed off. Yeah? This time, Trump is just doing it for Israel. I don't think America and American government gains any benefit of creating this tension with Iran. Zero, because it's really pushing Iran towards China and Russia. And I think in that sense, I think America almost has lost its chance. Well, I want Iran to do a sharp turn towards China. I want Iran to really go to like Xi Jinping tomorrow and say, guys, come. The country is like, we are like going to do a strategic partnership with you. Everything. We're going to throw away dollar, everything in yuan, directly barter, because America left no option for Iran. It's strangulating it, and it's pushing the country to the point of Syrianization and internal dissolution. So I think if I was Ayatollah tomorrow, instead of shooting kids on the street, I would go and get these like pro-American oligarchs and politicians like Zarif, Rouhani, and the rest. I will put them on house arrest, and I will do a from above Bonapartean sharp turn to the east, because the West really betrayed Iran not once but so many times, and it seems that it's not suffice with anything less than turning Iran into Syria and Libya.
Yeah, the goal is not to do that, and I think that's why President Trump has has restrained some of the ambitions of Netanyahu. But know this about the American president. He never forecloses the prospect of a deal, even when he talks about Iran now in very sharp terms, at times the crass terms that you've identified.
Arakchi went to the meeting with Witkoff in September in around UN. Witkoff didn't even appear to the meeting. How humiliating. After you bomb a country, you destroy all its facilities, and Iran comes. I mean, remember, Pezeshkian in his conversation with Tucker Carlson didn't even mention American bombing Iran because they didn't want to escalate the tension. Arakchi in his conversation with Fox News didn't mention American bombing Iran. They all focus on Israel. Yet America said, we don't want negotiation. We want surrender. What Trump said, we want total surrender. And let me just
surrender of those ambitions of the nuclear program. Right. But I don't think Trump. I don't think Trump seeks. I don't think Trump seeks surrender of the country. And I would also offer that this is how it works, man. With Trump and his diplomatic way of doing things. 1 minute it's my red button is bigger than your red button, and the next minute he and Kim are writing love letters to each other, and so there's a fire and ice to it.
Something that Iran doesn't have. Kim had something that Iran didn't have, and that's nuclear bomb. I think if Iran had the intelligence of Kim, Trump would have respected Iran much more. Let me just finish on this one. However, as irrational the Iranians have been in not making themselves a nuclear power so far, and will be better for the peace and prosperity of everyone in the region. But I have to say, there's a difference between Iran and Gaddafi and Assad and the rest. These people in Iran, this IRGC, they've been fighting since they're 18. They fought 8 years war against Saddam, who gassed people, who used biological weapon, and Iran was absolutely empty. Go and read Foreign Policy, how America helped Saddam gassing Iranians. Yeah? So these people have built everything themselves. They're not going to go anywhere. They have nowhere to go. They're not going to go to Europe. They're not going to go to exile in Miami or anything. So the dream of regime change, the way that was presented by American media last week, was not Hollywood, was Bollywood. Was so cheap, so stupid, so I mean, they were Telegraph was talking about imminent collapse of the regime. This is a joke. It's a state with massive apparatus, with tentacles in Iraq and Lebanon and Yemen and Afghanistan and so many other places. They're not going to go anywhere. So regime change is not possible. But the regime, or what you call the regime, the state was willing to make a lot of concessions, and Trump doesn't even receive them. Trump says surrender, and I think that doesn't work. This time, you're going to see a much more severe response from IRGC. And possibly Trump is pushing Iran to become nuclear and is pushing Iran to fall in the hand of IRGC. So from mullahs, it's going to go to a military-ruled country. And both of them would be manufactured by Donald Trump. If Iran builds a bomb, it would not be called Fat Man or Short Man. It would be called Loved by Trump, because Trump is the engineer of Iranian bomb.
Yeah, I think there might be some folks at Fordo that would have a different perspective on that. Ali Alizadeh, thank you so much for joining us for the debate and discussion. We appreciate your perspective and your insights. The editorial chief for Jadal TV, an Iranian political analyst based in London. Thanks for being with us on the program.
Thanks for giving me the time and platform.
Thank you.
Yes, always a pleasure. And we'll be back next week with another episode of Anchormen. Thanks so much for joining me, Pearson.
Always.
Want to see more great videos like this? Click on the link below to subscribe to OAN Live and watch Dan Ball's Real America and The Matt Gaetz Show on Dish Channel 212. Tune in, subscribe.